Welcome to the new episode of All That Jazz. I'm your host, Matyash, and I have with me Becky Walks. Welcome to the podcast, Becky Walks.
Thanks for inviting me on. My last name is actually Walker. Walks is my Facebook alias. So it's good times.
I was gonna say something about that, but now you say it's actually Walker, because I was gonna say Becky walk. It's like a factual statement. Becky can walk. She
I
she
like to
walks.
walk. And it's true. My daughter makes fun of it because it's my ex-husband's last name, and I never changed it after we got divorced because it's my daughter's last name, right? And then I always planned on getting married again, but it hasn't happened. It's been a long time. So I'm like, well, I'll just keep this name. I've had it for most of my adult life, so it works well.
You mean Walker or Walker?
Walker, Walker,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. So you are a coach and a energy spiritual healer, right?
I am, yes.
Okay. So but I imagine this is not your original kind of training. No. So okay. So let's start there. What's your because a lot of people get educated in one thing, but then they end up doing something completely different.
Yes, that's really true. So I went to college right out of high school and I took chemical engineering technology at a technical college out in Western Canada. And that led me into a career in oil and gas. So I worked in oil and gas industrial labs. I never wanted to work in a lab, but I ended up in a lab. So it wasn't your usual analytical lab. It was like an engineering type lab. So it was dirty, 24 hours a day kind of thing, thrown
Yeah.
right in there into the oil and gas culture. It was awesome, awesome learning experience. And during the downfalls of like the downturns of oil and gas, I worked at banks. So I went from like oil and gas to banking, back to oil and gas to banking, back to oil and gas.
Nice. All
And
money. All money.
yeah, you know what? Well, banking doesn't pay you though. Banking is
Oh,
like banks make the money. They don't pay you very well. But it was really good knowledge for me, right? Because I learned a lot about finances and credit and how to work with money. And when I got hired with jobs, they really liked that because they saw I'm so multifaceted. Like I can learn anything that I want to. So I've always, before I went to college, I always wanted to be a psychologist when I was young. But my
mm-hmm.
mom, because I was a good girl, I listened to my mom sometimes. And she's like, you should go into like chemistry because you're so good at chemistry. But I'm like, I don't really like chemistry. But she's like, you'll make more money doing this. And I'm like, okay, I'll go into this. And it's a
Right.
short course. And it was great. Like I really enjoyed my career path. It was really cool. But yeah, so 3 years ago, I decided to take a life coaching course more for myself
Mm-hmm.
because I was dealing with some major trauma that was coming up, and my divorce crushed me, and just breakups and just a lot of stuff going on in my life. So it was for myself and my kids more than anything. And I started using it just with friends because people would always come to me for wisdom, and
For
I never
advice,
understood
yeah.
that. Yeah, and I never understood it at the time because my life was a flaming mess as I saw it.
Right.
But everybody else was like, you're so wise, you know so much. I'm like, because I've gone through a lot of stuff. But yeah, so I took that, and then I ended up working in oil and gas again at a really great company. And then this year when we had our big COVID lockdown in March, our company just like cut again, like cut so many of their people. So I was like, man, it's time for a change. So I'd always been interested in energy healing. I'd gone for Reiki many, many times before. I'd gone for acupuncture, which was a huge healer for me. It helped me
Mm-hmm.
so much, a lot. And yeah, I just started searching. I'm like, what should I do? And I just started learning self-learning and taking psychology courses and learning like neuro-linguistic programming and really understanding how the brain works and mapping the brain because my daughter was really struggling and I wanted to help her. And yeah, I learned so much in my path. I always say the how is not up to us. Things just sort of come when they're meant to come to you. And I
Right.
just all of a sudden had this huge awakening of I got to learn all this stuff. And I learned a whole bunch of stuff and attuned myself. And yeah, it's been a really cool ride.
So are you a believer in like destiny? You said things are moving to you if they're well, it's almost like not a fatalistic, but yeah, kind of destiny, kind of like if things are meant to happen. You know how some people just try a little bit and then they succeed immediately, and some people try and try and try and it fails, and then the wife leaves them and everything's in shambles. So I
Yeah.
don't know. It's what's the
I
element
definitely
of destiny in here?
there is like a fated and we have fated events in our lives, and there's destiny. Destiny is what we create for ourselves. Our
Hmm.
soul has like we have a fated soul. Like our souls all have a specific song, and we all vibrate at specific frequencies, but we lose a lot of that frequency through life events, trauma. And when people are trying and it's not working for them, I always look at that and it's like it's not your path, or you're it is your path and you're not ready for it. There is like there's something that I learned through my journey. It's just wu wei. It's effortless effort. It's wu wei. It's Taoism, and it's
Mm.
effortless effort. You go with the flow, and when you're forcing, you can't make things happen. You have to become aligned with what is meant for your soul and your soul's path, and then you go with it. You set your intentions. You do your work, of course. Like things aren't just going to magically happen for you if you don't make the effort and try. I guess
Right,
some
right.
people it's easy for them and it just comes. I'm not one of those people. I don't like to use the word struggle, but I struggled through a lot of things in my life. But that was my life's journey. Like I had to learn through discord and discomfort and pain and trauma and abuse to be able to teach now. Right. Because I understand, suicide. I understand, physical and mental and emotional abuse. I understand, losing a child. I like not death, but having my child taken away from me. I understand having to
Hmm.
start my life many times. And now, I can see through what's going on. So yes, I feel that there are certain things that we're fated to be, but we have to get in alignment with those the events that take us there and
Right.
not block ourselves.
What do you think about? I remember when The Secret came out first in 2006, and a lot of people were like, "Oh, just oh, you have a cat? That's cool." So a lot of people were like, "Oh, just positive thinking, and that's all you need." And for a while, I believed that as well. But obviously, nothing just happens if you just believe in law of attraction, positive thinking, and that's then I realized that actually it's not just the law of attraction. It's not, things are just not gonna appear in your life just like that. You have to, like you said, you have to take action. You have to maybe once you set the intention, you have to listen to your intuition that says maybe you should do this, maybe you should do that, and go for it, right?
And it's inspired action. It's not just take action. The action has to be inspired from your soul or higher self. And a lot of us live in that egoic mind still, like that primal limbic system that's living off fear, fear, fight or flight, post-traumatic stress disorder. And that's not going to lead us to the events that we want to go. That's just going to pull in more garbage into our system to live with. So it is true. Like positive thinking does work, but your subconscious actually has to believe those positive affirmations, which is that's where the shadow work comes in. A lot of
Mm,
people use the term shadow work. That's where digging out the trauma is, because a lot of us, like, we can be like, hey, I'm awesome outwardly, but you don't believe it at a soul, like you don't believe it within yourself, right? And like you can be egoically awesome, but a lot of the time that stems from self-hate, if that makes sense to you. It's like a lot of people, like, they
yeah.
try too hard, and you got to heal the inside. And because if you think of your energetic system like a tube, like a clear tube that goes through you, if your chakras are all gummed up with garbage and trauma, and you're trying to send light through the system to, call back more to you and believe it, if you're full of gunk, you're not going to be able to flow anything through that
Right.
system. Clean the
How,
system out first.
how do you know if somebody's listening to this or watching, if their chakras are out of alignment, as you say, if they're totally gummed up? Probably their life will be a mess, probably. But how like is there like a test that you can like that that you will know like something's out of whack, or do you have to go to somebody like you? Somebody will say, your chakras are all messed up. They're closed. They're I don't know.
I would never say they're messed up. Like, we're learning. And when people become aware, awareness is key. As soon as you're aware, you can work on the intention and heal things. But like, if you're not in the beginning of my journey, I felt really called to go to Reiki, and my science mind was like, what the F is this? Like, I'm not going to swear, but it's like, how is this even doing anything? It's like, she's not even touching me, but I feel weird stuff going on in my body and I feel emotion. So if you're still like not awakened to the knowledge of the chakras, it is best to go like seek, professional assistance with it,
Yeah.
right? Is you can actually make things worse instead of making them better if your intentions aren't in the right spot. You got to make sure and research your healer, because not just anybody can heal you, because they have to be attuned to that vibration. So if somebody's like, oh, I can heal you, but they're not healed themselves enough to be a healer and not
Okay.
a vibration, you could actually cause more damage to your energetic system.
That's a good point. I was thinking of a joke. Like if somebody's a mechanic and you're trying to reach him and you just say your chakras are just shot. Imagine, sorry. It's a weird joke. Okay. So, okay. A lot of people, I think, especially this year, are awakening to the fact that maybe there's something more to life than just the material and stuff like that. And, they're searching for things right and left, and they may find podcasts like this and other books. Um, and So, how do you know that somebody's actual genuine healer versus somebody that's like a quack, as they call it in the skeptical circles? The skeptics will say anything like Reiki is bad and all that. Obviously I'm not in that. Domain, but that's what they will say. But to be more open-minded, but to actually try to find the real genuine healer, how do you go about that?
Well, I would always trust your divine guidance and trust your intuition. If it feels wrong, it is wrong. If you feel icky, don't go with that person. Or if any part of your like, if you're just hearing like a no, first of all, it's learning to understand your intuition. But I find you're always divinely guided. So if you're actually setting that intention out to the universe or God or whatever you believe is around. I'm very non-dogmatic in the way my spirituality is, and I teach because I like to be able to teach and teach everybody, right? Without
Right.
offending people. And so if you set the intention that I need somebody to facilitate my guidance and my healing at my highest best good and the highest best good for all, you're going to attract that in. Like intention and awareness is the key, because that's energy. It's quantum physics. It's, everything's happening at the same time. So if you're calling that in and you're actually at a place where you're ready, then you'll like say open up your Facebook and an ad will come up and you're like, oh, this person's near me, and they feel right, and you'll just be like, oh, or you'll Google something and you'll just know which one to click on. It's really neat, because I like
Hmm.
at the beginning of my path, like when I really was getting into energy stuff probably 3 years ago and learning, things would just show up in my Facebook, like weird stuff that I'd never Googled or never talked about, just about how energy is key to the universe. And I was like, this is crazy. And I was like dismissing it. Now I look back on it and like the dots always connect going backwards. You're like, man, I was being guided. I was
Hmm.
being pushed. It's like somebody who finds this podcast, they will just stumble upon it and it'll be exactly what they need to hear, whether it's 4 years from now, whether it's tomorrow, we're all so connected. So yes, set a positive intention for what you need.
Okay. A lot of people probably desperate as well, and they're not maybe as attuned, and those people are probably by those people that are not genuine articles. They are probably taken advantage of the most. So, what would you be advice for those people that are desperate and are still like, um, probably the more severe desperation, obviously, if somebody's dying in a way, and then they're desperately seeking for something, and you may or may not be able to help him. I think, again, I think a lot of part is maybe destiny. Some people are just maybe their time is up, like, but I think in a lot of cases something can be done. It's just that they don't know yet. This is kind of like in the future. I think the medicine will look kind of supernatural because there'll be things we don't understand yet. So so how do the people that are desperate, how do they discern? I guess that's the hard question to ask, but
Well, I think sometimes people, when they're in that place, they aren't going to discern and they're still going to learn the hard lessons, right? Because
hmm,
desperation is a vibration that comes from all the lower vibrational frequencies that are in your body. It's just total discord, and you're sending out a signal to the universe that you don't know what you want. So just if you're in that desperate place and you just feel like there's nothing out there for you, if you can just sit and center yourself for a couple minutes and quiet your mind and call in, you know, your angels or your guides or your spirits or your ancestors, and just be like, lead me. I think the biggest thing a lot of people don't realize in their desperate times is we have so many beings around us that want to support us. Like so many, like there's the archangels, there's the ascended masters, there's your own team of guides that are whispering things in your ears all the time, but you have to attune to be able to hear them. But they can't help us unless we ask for it, because we as humans have been given something called free will. So if you're in that desperate, just pray. You know, if you're religious, pray. Pray for what comes to you at your highest best good. Don't pray out of fear. Never ever pray out of fear or shame. Pray out of hope and faith, whatever you're praying to, because that will raise your vibration at that point. Like, and you will send out a better signal to the universe, because we are all just a vibrational vortex. And things are swirling around our vortex. So desperation, if you're swirling desperation, you're going to attract desperation, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
We're mirrors. Everything that comes into our existence is a mirror of what's going on within us. So yes, if you find you're attracting a lot of lower frequency things to you, just try to center yourself and try to find, if you can just clear your mind for one moment and find a pinch of gratitude or joy and hope, that will shift your mindset.
Okay. To a higher energy, basically.
Yeah.
I want to ask you your opinion, because you alluded to that everybody has, it's almost like you made the analogy that everybody's energy is beaten down through life because of the traumas and all that. And do you think people come in with the same vibrational frequency in life? Or do you think people come in at different levels?
They come at different levels because there's different ages of souls. There's all different thoughts about this, but what I have come to understand and believe is our souls make a contract before we're put into our mother's womb, before we're seeded. And our souls have contracts, karmic contracts. We take on ancestral contracts. Our DNA is encoded with stuff that's come in from previous lives and from our parents and the people around us. And yeah, so some of us are just born with lives that we have to walk through. We have to walk through more fires than other people, where some people, like you mentioned, some people, everything just is so easy for them.
Yeah.
Because they
Or
have all that
seems
code
easy.
in their DNA. But that's necessary, because if we were all the same, life would be boring. If we were all just like traumatic filled vessels, there would be nobody creating at any time, right? We'd all just be like, oh.
Right. Yeah, not everybody has the same amount of drama. I think we can all agree on that. Like some
Yeah.
people's lives is just one drama after another, and some people's become alcoholics or any kind of other addicts, and some people don't for some reason. And that's just life. It's just very different. Like I don't know, but in one way it's good to be an addict, because then you either die if it's a severe, like if you're an alcoholic, or you find a spiritual program like the 12 steps, and then you start. I don't know if you're familiar with the 12 step. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's an amazing program, and then they get better if they
Because
really work it.
they find connection. Any kind of addiction comes from lack of connection to yourself and to source.
Yeah.
So that's why a lot of these programs are like, they're religious based, right? Because then you feel connected to God or source or Jesus, and then you become connected in a group of like-minded individuals who are all trying to shift and heal together.
Well, 12 step, in my understanding, is spiritual based, because they use the term higher power, which is like a umbrella term, and I really love that. It is an amazing program, and it's kind of for free. So if anybody's struggling for any kind of addiction, I think that's what I would recommend. Any kind of, because there's a lot of 12 step programs out there. All right, you mentioned we that you're a musician.
Yes.
What do you play?
When I was younger, I played piano. I was always
Okay.
that, so I never wanted to take like I took theory. I took conservatory, like the technical piano, for a few years, but that's not how I learn. I'm a creator, so it's like I learn by my ear, and then I learn at my own pace. And then when I was older, I started playing guitar, and I've always played, but I was always told I was no good. So I started to believe that through
Oh,
and I was always told I couldn't sing. And it's funny that ingrained in my life until this year, it clicked that I actually am capable. And it was funny through my healing and like healing my heart and opening my heart up, I found my voice, because I feel like we lose our voice a lot because our heart and our throat chakra close off and we can't sing. And all of a sudden I can sing and people want to hear me sing and people want me to play for them and people want to make music with me. And I don't need anybody to make music with me either
mm-hmm.
now. That's the best part, but it's pretty amazing to have, musicians want to co-create with you, like good musicians. And you're like, yeah, I got something to give to this. So that was a big thing for me this year too, being able to say I'm a musician, because I never believed that, because I just played for fun. But no, I write and I play, and
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a huge thing. Like if you think you can do something, you most likely then won't be able to do it. I think a lot of skills that people develop is when they're young, somebody tells them they're good at it, and then they immediately believe it, and then they become good at it. It's
Well,
amazing.
power of the mind.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Power of the mind. Like people just so tell your kids good stuff at least, but don't. Yeah, I think that's a good advice to encourage them, not to beat them
we have
down.
to we have to watch our language. Like one of the things with neurolinguistic programming that's been a huge growth experience in my life and working with people is the language that we use. So even when I correct my kids, I try to do it out of words of affirmation and not create shame in their system, because shame is one of the lowest vibrational frequencies we can hold in our system.
Right.
Shame and fear and despair. And it's like, so if my kid does something that I don't think is right, instead of like shaming them for it, I talk to them and it's like, find out the root why they've done it and what made them feel that they had to do that. And then explain to them that that behavior isn't going to help them to grow. And we need to find a different behavior to replace that behavior.
Right. Do you think well, raising kids is difficult. So there's must be a measure of morality and punishments. And do you think that's the case? Like you have to create like firm boundaries, like you can't do this, things like
Yeah,
that.
you have to be consistent. It's like anything. It's like with adults, you have to be consistent with any kind of relationship, whether it's a parent relationship, whether it's a personal relationship, a friendship, or a love-based relationship. It's all the same. We teach people how to treat us, right? And in anything, it's boundaries. Personal boundaries are key. And I teach my kids that too. It's like, if something makes you uncomfortable, don't do it. Don't be a jerk about it. And like there's times where you do need to do certain things, but if it's like somebody wants to hug you and it doesn't feel right, you don't have to hug somebody. Like, or if a friend's telling you to do something that makes you uncomfortable, don't do it. Like follow your gut instinct. And I find like
Yeah.
one thing I learned through my life, like I'm 39, and it's like I was taught to not follow that voice in my head, that intuition. And so all my life, I questioned the intuition and I followed the fear, because I was so deeply embedded with fear-based energies. And it's taken me like 37 years to understand what my intuition is and how to listen to it. And I'm teaching, and I see, so many of my clients, it's the same thing. They don't understand what's their fear versus intuition.
Yeah, I have the same problem. Like I'm praying sometimes, but I'm not sure if the guidance I'm getting is actually is it God's guidance or am I just thinking things up? But a lot of times is, good sounding things, and then but then the next problem is to do it. Also, like you can have I think a lot of people know this is another problem. A lot of people know we're getting into coaching now, I guess. A lot of people know what they ought to do in their life, what they ought to read, maybe a book a week, or a book every 2 weeks, or to go take this course, or stop eating this and that, but they don't do it. So that's the fundamental question. How do you do things that are good for you and stop doing the things that are bad for you?
Well, first of all, they have to be good for you and not for the people around you. That's the big thing. Discernment is key, because just because something is good, like you said, reading a book, well, that might not be somebody's way to learn. Maybe it's watching podcasts, maybe a different way to
Right.
get your brain going is good, right? Or sometimes it's watching documentaries. Like I like to read, but I have to force myself to read, because I don't, it's not something that I truly enjoy at a soul level. It's more, I do it because I'm going to learn from it. But yeah, it's following those inklings in your soul that make you happy and coming into alignment. But yes, removing toxic traits are difficult, and you will only remove them when it's time. Nobody can make you do them. It has to be your time. And if you fall, like say if you're working on removing a toxic habit, and you fall back into it, the biggest thing that I teach is don't feel shame about it. Pick yourself up, start over, you're human, like you are human, and start again, and forgive yourself for falling back into patterns. It's been a pattern that saved you your whole life. You know, a lot of the time it's patterns brought from childhood, you know, and give yourself and start over, and it becomes easier and easier. You create new habits, you create new patterns, you create new timelines and outcomes in your life, and it becomes easier and easier because you see the positives that come out of changing. And then you're like, then you want to change more things about yourself. It's always those first couple ones that are the big ones. And you
Yeah.
don't start with the big ones. That's the thing too. Start with something little, you know?
Yeah, I was gonna say start small, because I think a lot of times, I know in my life, a lot of times I wanted to have drastic change, and then I'd be disappointed when it didn't happen. Because I set myself the expectation so high that it was easy to fail.
Well, that's it. And then that keeps you in that cycle, because then you're like, why would I even try? Because I fail. And no, it's because you're
Exactly.
placing too much expectation. So you're setting yourself up to fail. So write a list out of things you want to change and start with one small one. And when you reach that goal and you can reprogram that one thing, whether it's a thought about yourself where you're just beating yourself up in your subconscious, you know, that voice that's like, man, you're stupid, or you're this, you know, reprogram it to say, it's okay, you're human, and we're going to try again. And, you know, once you get that one figured out, move on to the next one, you know.
Do you think it's better to manage your expectations of yourself, or just focus on loving yourself, kind of be more
Radical
loving?
self-love is way bigger. And that
Yeah.
comes with boundaries and overcoming hurdles and learning that you can accomplish anything that you want.
It seems to me that a lot of loving yourself is basically removing the other part, the hating yourself, the self-loathing, all of that stuff, the shadow work.
You know what? I look at that because that's polarities, right? We all have
Right.
dark and light in us, and we have to learn to love those shadow sides of ourselves because they have been there to protect us through our life. You know, like those shadows kept us alive a lot of the time. So it's in embracing those shadows and thanking them for the lessons they've taught you, and asking them to step aside so more light can shine through. That's where it comes from. And then removing those, like you talked about intuition a little bit, then you will quiet your mind. You will learn to quiet your mind, that chatter a little bit, and you'll be able to hear the intuition. Because intuition never comes in a place of bossiness. It's
Hmm.
never forceful. It's never fearful. It's never, it will never hurt anybody else, and it will never hurt you. So, and it's never manipulative. So if you just hear that, if you ask yourself a question, this is how I do it. I ask myself a question. If I hear a yes or a no and it's calm, like right away, that's how I started with it. It's like,
Right.
you know, that's your intuition.
Oh, so it has to be calm, and it can be like frantic or be like,
No, that's your ego. That's your ego self right there. The frantic.
right. But see, even there, sometimes I catch myself and be like, am I imagining this? Is this something that I'm telling myself, or is this actually intuition? Separating what is my logical brain and what is the intuition brain. And maybe that's just me, but I sometimes I'm like, what was that?
No, that's part of the human experience, is dissecting that and being able to tune into that. And as you raise your frequency and lower, like remove a lot of that chatter from your mind, you will hear the clear and calm yes or no, or the guidance or the inspiration comes through you. And that's when you know you are aligning to your higher self and you're becoming in alignment. And another good thing to look at is, like I said, what you're pulling into your life. So if you have a lot of discord around you, or drama, or I don't like to use these words because they're sort of like trigger words, or versus synchronicities happening around you and miracles, like small miracles, that's a good place to see what your internal dialogue and internal state is at.
Mm-hmm.
I even do that in my life still. I have to check, like I'm human, right? So if I have somebody come at me with something and I'm triggered, then I'm like, man, I have to remove something from me. There's something in me that pulled that to me, because we are magnets. Like our hearts are a magnetic torus field that pull into us. So the further we can open them up and heal them and be vulnerable, that's when you become in alignment. And that's when people use, like, that's where magic comes from, like true high vibrational magic.
I think I would largely agree with that. That is the insecurity within myself that sometimes provokes maybe other people to, or sometimes the seeking of disapproval, let's say, that I maybe espouse opinions publicly that I know is gonna get disapproved. So then I get the validation of disapproval from others, right?
Yeah. And that's where the self-love comes in, because you get to a point where you don't care what other people think. As long as you're serving at your highest best purpose and you're speaking your truth, not somebody else's truth, and you love yourself, and you know you're not intentionally hurting anybody, because people do get hurt sometimes and triggered.
Right.
And you know you are on the path to your own self-mastery and emotional mastery.
Do you know the chakras by heart?
I know, like the 7 main ones, there's like freaking hundreds of chakras in your body.
There
But
is.
Oh yeah, we have chakras in our hands. We have chakras all through. And if you look at like the chi, like the Chinese medicine, like there's energy points all through our body, like acupuncturists and stuff. Like there's all these energy points, and they're so
Okay.
powerful. Do you want me to go through the chakras, like the main chakras?
Just a seven. Just a seven.
Okay, I like to do 9 because there's an Earth star and a Soul star as well.
Okay,
So
let's. I just want to know, like, if it's because I've never done this. Like, if I think there might be a list of things that's if this chakra is out of whack, then this means, and then what's likely to happen is, are you looking for a list now?
I actually had something printed up. Like I know the main things, but I
Okay.
had some deeper stuff, but I can go through them. So our root is located at the base of our spine, before
Yes.
in our first 2 vertebrae. And that is the first chakra that comes online. As we grow, different chakras come online and become conscious.
Yes.
So that chakra is like, as soon as we're born, the root is, and that's your safety. That's your safety. That's your primal like need to eat, need for love, need for, well, not for love, but to be taken care of and nurtured.
Yeah.
So if your root is underactive, you will feel very depressed, very uneasy. You will feel very ungrounded. The roots, it's very important to ground the root, because that's how our energy flow happens. So a lot of people, trauma will stick down in those lower 3 chakras. There are 3rd dimensional chakras. So they're life on this earth, right? So the root holds a ton of trauma. A good and stable root is you feel safe. So a good mantra for your root is I am safe. I'm safe. You can just tell yourself, I am safe. When we go into that panic limbic brain mode where you're like, holy crap, and you just start panicking, just tell yourself you're safe. Like, I'm safe. Unless somebody's actually holding a gun to your head at that moment and you're like, your life is at risk, you are safe. You know, you create all these narratives.
I think a lot of that is thinking of the future. Will I have enough money? Will I have a home, etc., etc. So that's the insecurity of the base chakra, basically.
And if it's overactive, I'm trying to think what like if your root's overactive, you're very impulsive and you're very driven by impulses and emotion. And it's like the other way. And like either overactive or underactive are both very, like, it's about bringing it into balance in that space where you're safe and you're calm and you're, and you know, if you're feeling like you don't know what's going on in the future, all I say is look at yourself now and tell yourself, I have everything I need and I'm fully supported right now. Because really, we're always fully supported. We have to believe it.
Right.
Your next chakra going up is located between the belly button and the root. So it's right, that's like, it houses the sexual organs, our creativity. It's your spleen, a lot of your intuitions in there. So it's your sacral chakra. So I'll say the root chakra is red, like that's the color, the vibration that goes with the root chakra. The sacral is orange. It vibrates in an orange and it spins nice. When it's spinning nicely, you have creative flow. You're not seeking sex as a means to please yourself. It's not ego driven. You're comfortable in your sexuality. And a lot of us who've lived with sexual trauma, or like been shamed by our sexuality or anything like that, we have a lot of blockages in our sacral chakra, because a lot of us have been told sex is wrong, especially with a lot of organized religions have told people that type of thing.
Right.
And it's being comfortable in your body and loving yourself. And so if it's overactive, you will find like sexual impulses. You might be overly creative, but you're not grounded, but nothing's coming to fruition. So a really good thing for your sacral chakra is to get back in touch with your feminine, your creative, your right brain side, and create, whether it's writing or drawing or music, or even just like people creating on, computer programs, or like this, like podcast is super creative, and it's so great for that chakra and to balance.
Oh, so it's very orange chakra. This is what I'm doing. It's very orange.
Yeah, you're creating, you're sharing, right?
Right.
So that's another one that holds a lot of third dimensional trauma.
I was going to ask, is there a correlation between the chakra that's most active in you and the color that you like?
Yes, a color that you're attracted to can have a correlation with that, definitely. So if you look at your favorite color and you go research the chakras, that might be one of your power centers.
Because I like blue. Blue is a good color for me.
So this is a great, having a podcast, doing what you're doing is great for your throat chakra, which is blue. Your throat is a blue vibrational color, which is amazing. So your next chakra up is your solar plexus. In Chinese medicine, it's your dantian. So that's your power center, your solar powered center, hence your solar plexus. That is also a third dimensional chakra. All of our power sits in there. Our confidence, a lot of our self-love is in there too. Our ability to believe that we're worthy. And a lot of people who have that imposter syndrome, I struggled for a long time, where I didn't believe I could do what I was doing.
Right.
And that's based in your solar plexus. And a lot of that can be karmic stuff.
Is it like in the stomach area? Like
it's just above your navel. It's between your navel and like your sternum. So it's in your center.
Right.
And that's a great place to pull a lot of, like, when you're practicing breath, is breathing into these chakras and balancing them and just picturing yourself balancing them and blessing them.
Can I share a little story about that? Because it involved some weird stuff that happened to me once. I was I'm not gonna mention names, but I was in this argument with this guy in this hostel that I lived in, and then so I was very tense, right? And then there was so that's one thing that happened, because a lot of things happened in those 2 days. And another thing that happened was that I was laughing a lot with this other guy that lived there. We were laughing, making stupid jokes. And then after the big argument, we were having lunch or dinner. And as soon as I started laughing a lot, it was like something something pierced me through, like behind the sternum or just below the sternum, like something, like there was a ball that was just unwrapping. And I was like, oh, it was almost like a physical pain. I never could understand. Maybe it was because I was laughing too much the day before, because I laughed so much that day that maybe I injured maybe I fatigued my, I don't know, solar plexus or whatever. Or was it the argument, or was it the combination of both? I can never understand it. Maybe we'll never know. And I just wanted to ask, was I overloading or was I imbalancing my solar chakra those 2 days or something?
Possibly. If it was was it behind your upper sternum, like up in here on the backside?
It was just like here, like sternum, behind the sternum.
So that would be your heart chakra. So we feel a lot in our heart chakra. So if there was like any kind of discord that was going on or discontent,
But it
you can
wasn't here. It was just below the sternum. Is that still the heart chakra?
I think that would be more the heart chakra. The
Okay.
solar plexus is down a little farther, but you can feel things coming in, definitely. And when you're healing, you'll feel things coming out too. Like you'll get muscle pains that are connected to those chakras. And yeah, it's really cool to look in. And you can, anybody who's watching can Google a lot of this. There's a lot of
Yeah, for sure.
Reiki. You can find Reiki diagrams that sort of tell you different muscle pains and areas, what emotionality they're like stuck to, what
Correlated to, yeah.
that's the word, correlated, or what chakra that correlated to. So yeah, your solar plexus is like your power center. So that's one of the most important to, well, they're all important to work on. But if you feel like you're insecure, if you feel like a lot of anxiety will come from your solar plexus because you don't feel like self-assured, right?
I think that was me a lot during your life. Now less now, but otherwise I wouldn't be doing this. But still, you know, it's a work in progress, I think.
And it
Yeah.
always is. You know what? Even the most enlightened healer is still a work in progress because we are a human being, right?
Right.
Living a experience. So then going up from the solar plexus is the heart, and the heart's obviously in the heart center. And our heart, like I said, is it's our most magnetic chakra. When we, in our human experience, oh shoot, my daughter's home. I might have locked her out of the house. I might have to run for a second.
Okay.
I can't remember if I unlocked the door down there. She doesn't have a key. We close our hearts off because of trauma and things that we've gone through, and we protect our hearts and we become unvulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
And can we pause
Yes.
for a second?
Yeah, that's fine.
Sorry, I hear her opening and closing the garage door.
Minutes.
It's okay. I love you. Sorry about that.
All right.
Parenting
Is that a healing table behind you? I didn't see it before, but
it's messy. It's got like a blanket. It's my massage table, but I use it for healing.
oh
So
yeah,
I
yeah,
lay
yeah.
and
I've seen that before. Yeah. Those are cool. I've had Reiki on that kind of table. It was nice.
oh, have you? It's
Yes.
awesome. You know what? Because of all the COVID stuff going on, I've done online like Reiki circles, and I've had online healing, and it's just as powerful. It's so cool.
So wait, for Reiki, you don't have to actually be physically present?
No, it's intention, energy. We're quantum, right? So it's like if you have a psychic reading with somebody who's like this, across the world from each other, you just tune in and it's sending. That's why intention is so powerful. And our thoughts are so powerful. So if we're sending nasty thoughts to people, well, they'll boomerang and come back to us, but they can feel that they're being attacked by anybody's low vibrational thoughts towards them.
Right. Is there a way to protect against that?
Shield yourself. If you can learn energetic integrity. Like that's one of the biggest things is being an empath. Like I was so, in the beginning of my journey, I would suck up people's emotions. So I would have mood swings all the time and I wouldn't understand why. And learning what was mine and what was somebody else's and discerning it was hugely powerful. And so if you're feeling like you're being attacked, Archangel Michael he's the great protector. So you can call him in to surround you with a cone of protection, just random too. And you can also picture like an egg of white light around you and just call back all your energy, call back all your soul fragments and send anything that doesn't vibrate with you away. It's all intention.
I was just curious about why I like Jesus, but there seems to be it's kind of funny because there seems to be like this even in the Catholic tradition there's a saint for this, there's a saint for procrastination, a saint for getting a job, saint for this. So it seems like a specialization. So you pray for this saint for that, this saint for that. Um is that what it is? It's basically you call on the part of divinity that works for that in that department, let's say, and you get a
They
more
work
faster response.
Well, they work with all the archangels and the ascended masters work with different rays of light and different vibrations, and they have different powers about them. So they're, yeah, if people want to research, you can just Google the archangels and it'll go through what they help with and like people's circumstances, what they've gone through and how the angels appear to them or helped them. And yeah, it's a learning experience, right? But Archangel Michael is great because he has this sword, this flaming sword to cut cords with people and cut ties. So whenever we come in contact with people, we create an energetic cord with them,
Right,
whether
aka
it's
chords
a
they call
shake
it.
or a
Yeah.
hug. And yeah, so you can call him in, and he's great at the beginning of your sovereignty journey of becoming an energetic sovereign being, because you just call him in, say, Archangel Michael, work with me to cut all the cords through my day, and then call back all your energy, call back all your soul fragments, and then you just call back your power, right? And then you're not leeching it all over the place.
Okay, going back to the kind of connecting it with the chakras, and the second chakra, you said it was sexual, and I remember Jordan Peterson talking about how we don't understand the risks of promiscuity. So my question would be, from the spiritual standpoint, is there a connection between being very promiscuous and then having kind of like a more energy attachments, and like if you're having like sex with people that you wouldn't necessarily want to hang around with and they're not the kind of people, do they leave like a kind of residue in
Oh
your
yeah.
chakras and stuff like that?
Oh yeah, especially if you're not vibrating. Well, obviously, no judgment on anybody who's gone through that, and it's just places that you're at and you're whole and complete where you are. If you're listening to this and you're in that place, you're whole and complete as you are, and you have to make the choice to make changes. Because I never want to judge anybody. But yes, if you're in that place, you will pick up what those other people have on them, because people who are struggling have attachments on them. Like they're almost entities and they are like leeches and they just suck and they feed off of that. And so you will pick up on that too. And you are allowing that to feed off you. And you'll find a lot of like discontent and lower vibrational energy will attach to you that way
Right.
until you're able to heal and shine your light. And then they won't even try. Like I still get attacks sometimes, like psychic attacks. I can feel it though when I'm aware of it now. And I know it's like, no, we're done. This is not happening.
Do you need
But
to
yeah,
sage the place? I have some sage at home, and I use that sometimes.
I sage
Sage.
the heck out of everything. My kids are like, stop it, mom. It's
But better be safe than sorry, you know.
yeah, exactly. But yeah, if you're living a life like that, or in addictions, all those negative mental issues are entity attachments, and they're speaking to you and they're almost like whispering in your ear to go do this. It's like all ego based. And yeah, so it's very true. When you are the people that you keep around, and it's so true, and it took me forever to realize this. It's like if you're
Oh, so it's not just sex; it's other stuff as well. People influence you by just their presence.
your energy, have you ever been around people who gossip nasty and you just feel
Yeah,
gross after you've been around it?
yeah, yeah,
Energy, it's life sucking. Or have you ever said something negative about somebody and then you feel so guilty after? Well, then you have that guilt in you then too, and you're
Ye-
just like,
Oh, I have a story about that. I was felt so bad. I still feel bad about this. So I used to play this game called Football Manager, and this game has thousands of people that are real football players and coaches and all that. So my gym coach was one of the assistant coaches or one of the coaches on the staff of the local football or soccer team, as you call it there, and he was in the video game. And I was telling my friend that that our coach in the video game, his stats are really terrible. And around that time, the teacher came, and I think he heard me, and I felt so bad. And I still feel bad to this day. I almost feel like I need to apologize.
oh, let that guilt go. That guilt is toxic. Forgive yourself for saying that, and just
Right,
be like, send him a bunch of love if you can't apologize to him, right?
right.
You got it. It's over with. Don't hold on to it.
Okay. We are at heart chakra, right?
So yes, the heart chakra is super important. You do need to, I always say you need to start at the bottom and heal up, because if you don't have your lower chakras healed, you can't heal your heart chakra, because everything works together. So yes, once you can work to open up your heart chakra, like the love of beauty, like when you can see, when you feel unconditional love for things, when you feel compassion, when you see beauty in everything, in every circumstance, whether it's a negative circumstance or not, but you can see the gift in it, that's when you know your heart chakra is in a good place. When you're always focusing on the negative, or you're hating on people, or you're judgy, or you have no compassion, that's when you know your heart chakra is closed. And don't feel like, don't judge yourself on it, because like something like judgment, when we judge others, it's a part of our unhealed self that we're judging. So work on not judging yourself to start with, right? And heal any hurts, any discontent in your heart, any heartbreak, let it go. Forgiveness is huge in your heart, because when we hold on to, you know, hate towards people or malice, we are just sending out, we're just hurting ourselves and creating bitterness in our own heart center, which is not good, because we close it off. And then I talked about that big Taurus field we have around us. Then your Taurus field might be this big instead of filling up a
Right.
room.
But
No,
I think it's important to realize that not judgment is good, but I think you have to, like we said before, you have to judge the friends you're around and stuff like
that's
that. They're
discernment.
discernment, right? Right. And I think there's also a thing called, what would you say about righteous judgment? Like,
Mm.
there's a story. Oh, hold on. There's a story in the Bible. Only one time when Jesus got angry, which was the money changers um, were selling stuff in the temple, and he got angry and threw them all out.
Yeah.
And that's an example of a righteous judgment, like that had a place. But I think that's rare, maybe, and you have to be
That's more of a boundary, right?
right. Okay.
Because Jesus just knew, like, you don't sell things in a church. You're
Right.
not going to benefit off somebody else. And so, yeah, I guess the word, because they use the word judgment in the Bible, but it's more of a boundary. It's like, no, this doesn't happen here. And that's like where self-love is so radical, because you set these boundaries for yourself where you don't allow people to treat you like crap anymore. And that's a righteous judgment then, if we go down that road, right? It's like, no, sorry, I don't put up with this behavior anymore.
Yeah, but then if you look at from the perspective of the money changers, they probably were upset that they're a source of income for that day or maybe that month or whatever. They probably found some other place to set up shop. But for that, that day, it was a bad day because all this stuff got, wrecked. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a tough one. I just always say, as long as when you go to sleep at night, forgive yourself for anything that you feel you've done that is not serving your highest best good, kind of thing. But the
Right.
forgiveness is key. Don't feel guilty about it. You're human. Don't judge yourself on it. Let it go. Just be like, I used to judge myself so harshly. Like everything that I'd say or do, I'm like, man, why did I say that? Oh, I can't believe that happened. And as you grow, you don't have those circumstances as often, but I still have moments where I'm like, man, I should have maybe worded that differently. But then I'm like, it's done. I can't change it. I can apologize to the person, or reach out and be like, hey, if this was taken the wrong way, I apologize. And I'm just
Yep.
sending love, and it's, so yeah, the heart is your magnetic monopole. The heart-centered living is where magic comes from, and when people say magic, because it is true, you attract. Have you ever been in a room with somebody who just draws you in because they're just so magnetic and you just love their vibes? That's because
Yeah.
their heart is good.
They just have a presence about them, and some people are the opposite. They drain you.
Well, they repel because their heart's closed off, right? And you feel that discordant energy. It's like and it's when you're closed off and your aura is not complete and not whole, you like almost send out little shards, like your aura is not round, it's sharded. And it's cool because my daughter can see auras. I can't see them. I can somewhat hear them and understand, like I can feel them, but my daughter can see it, and she can actually see where there's holes in an aura or different colors, or
Wow.
like there's shards coming out of it. And it's cool because she's drawn me pictures of things, and I'm like, wow, no 12-year-old would know this, unless they see it. So it's super cool. Like there's so many gifted beings who can. So anybody out there who can see them, work with it, because it's an amazing superpower to have. So after the heart is your throat chakra. And your throat chakra, if it's unbalanced and not right, you'll find you'll lie a lot, or you'll feel the need to tell people what they want to hear, or you'll have a lot of issues with even like your throat's clogged all the time, or you have a sore throat, because you can get these physical symptoms with your chakras too, which I haven't got over in the lower ones. But your throat, you can really feel if you're always having to clear your throat, or you can't speak you well up, right? One of the biggest healers for your throat is speaking your genuine truth, your soul truth. Or you'll find people are very brash, or like they're very attacky, or they say mean things.
Right, but they may have other chakras closed, but the throat chakra is just fine, and they just say whatever they think. It's like those people that are like they're like, I'm gonna tell you like it is, you know. If I don't like you, I'm gonna tell you that I don't like you, you know.
Yeah, but there's ways to do it that are compassionate, right? Like if I
Right.
don't like somebody, I'm just going to be like, or I don't like what somebody says, I'm not triggered by it, but I'm just like, hey, that doesn't resonate with me,
Is
you
it
know?
possible to have let's say throat chakra open and most of the other chakras closed? It doesn't work like it has to be one has to be open and second has to be open. It can be just like whatever, right?
Yeah, and you'll find like if your throat chakra is like super overactive and a lot of other stuff's closed, you may be that person who has no control over what comes out of your mouth. You know, people who just attack, and it's like, and then they feel guilty after, but then they have no control in that place. Or people
Right.
who've never felt like they have a voice. It's like they feel powerful by spewing hate or spewing whatever, right?
But the other
So
stuff is closed, like, but their throat is like, I've known people that they can just talk and talk and talk, even if it's BS, there are there's no remorse, even if they're wrong, they just like just go on and on.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that can be tied to your third eye and your crown too, right? If people just don't have any, like, it's BS because it's like they're so open and overactive, all these upper chakras, but all the lower ones are closed because they lack compassion, they lack balance or power, you know, they lack confidence. And you can start to read that on people when you watch them. Like you can almost start to see their energy and how it's flowing and where it's blocked. And it's
Really?
cool to
Really?
understand that. So then after your throat, you go up to your third eye. So your third eye and your heart are very connected. So if your heart's closed and your third eye is super open, you might be struggling with nightmares and stuff. So your third eye, these chakras up here are more like in the above realm, where trauma won't really do much to these chakras, like physical trauma. They don't get
Hmm.
stored in these chakras like the lower ones, the bodily ones. So yeah, your third eye, if you have nightmares, or if you're very if you're I actually believe a lot of like mental illness is in here. Like if people are, you know, seeing things, schizophrenia,
Right.
things like that can be very attached to your third eye. Our pineal gland will get very closed off through
Why do you think that happens, schizophrenia? Is it a chemical imbalance in the brain, like there's a susceptibility to an attack from the astral realm, let's say, or is it also is it always spiritual, or can it be one or the other, or combination?
I think it's both, right? Because it's our physiology too, right? Not everything is physiology and spiritual. Like it's all. And I'm not a doctor, and I'm not going to diagnose anybody. If somebody came to me with schizophrenia and it was just like uncontrollable, it would be like you need to go see a psychiatrist too. Like there's
Right,
sometimes
obviously.
medications that are needed, but a lot of the time there aren't. People who go into like what's the word? I had a friend this happened to. Her third eye was just so overactive. She wasn't schizophrenic. They were trying to tell her she was bipolar. She wasn't. It was just trauma. And she went into like this manic state where she'd see shit. Sorry, I swore. And she would see things, and it would just and it was like, and then they put her in the hospital and filled her full of drugs, and then it was so shut off, and then she had no intuition anymore. And a lot of the time when people are very ungrounded in their lower chakras, this energy that's trying to flow through them has nowhere else to go. So it like comes back out the top. So then they get like overactive up here.
Manic. They get manic. They can.
Manic, that's the word. And they start to see things. Because I've been in a place like that where I've actually seen things when I was in a lower vibrational state, when I was dealing with probably the worst time of my life. And I would black out and I would see things, and I would end up in places and I'd be like, how did I even get here? You know, and like,
Okay, how if somebody's predisposed to be manic or manic now, I don't know if they're listening to this, but let's say somebody has been manic, and how do they get grounded? How do they get the lower three chakras working?
Um, Meditation is huge. Great grounding practices are just being outside barefoot, connecting to the earth will pull things out of you like you don't believe. And just like I said, setting the intention that it's doing that. Feeling your body. Because a lot of the time when we're in traumatic experiences, our soul leaves our body. It's like astral traveling, right?
Right.
And so you just like even you'll see people who like rub themselves, right? It's like, but make a mental note to do that. If you're feeling ungrounded, just feel your body.
Wow,
Hold.
I usually do that. Sometimes I just do that without thinking. I just like rub my legs. Well, is
A lot
that
of
a sense of
that
grounding?
it can be. It's self-soothing a lot of the time. People will do that when they try to self-soothe themselves, but it will ground you. It'll ground you back in your body. Or just like make a note to ground. Being out in nature is very grounding. Like I said, meditation is very grounding. Listening to binaural beats, like the two different frequencies, just feeling things sometimes. Smells. I have a lot of essential oils, and like peppermints are very great to take a sniff of it, and it'll bring you back into your body because it almost shocks your body where you're like, oh. But yeah, there's lots of resources online if somebody's struggling with being grounded. There's tons on YouTube, free meditations for your root and for grounding.
There's a documentary on earthing, and it talks about benefits on walking barefoot. I saw that documentary like a year ago, and my friend is big into that. So because apparently there's a lot of health benefits you can get from grounding yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, I watched that back in April, and I actually bought an earthing mat because living in Canada, we can't go walk on the ground barefoot for half the year, right? Because it's cold and frozen. So I bought a ground mat for my kids and myself, and I have it at my bathroom sink. It's because as a girl, it's like you're always brushing your teeth and you're always standing there. So I find it's really good. And then my kids are standing on it too when they're brushing their teeth and stuff.
You can buy a mattress as well, apparently.
Yeah, well, you can buy mats, like things to go over your mattress.
Right.
I've noticed a difference. I use it with some of my clients too. If I sense they're very ungrounded, I'll lay it on my table before I treat them.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so the third eye, if you're having a lot of visions, because depending on the vibrate, if you're seeing a lot of lower, like some people see demonic things or they see demons, and that is a good that tells you where you're vibrating at too. So if you're seeing that stuff, tell it to leave and just try to bring your vibration up.
And then the last one is the crown chakra.
Right on the top of the head.
Right top. Yeah.
This is your connection with source. This is how you get to the higher realms. This is where your inspiration comes from. This is where you will channel creativity. You know, if you've ever been in a creative venture where you've just like gone into a trance, and I don't know if you paint or draw or write or anything like that, but if you feel like that tingling through your body and like things are just coming to you, you're connected to source. And a lot of people who are heretics and who refuse to think that there's any higher power, they're very cut off to source. And that's fine, that's their belief.
Did you call them heretics?
Yes. I'm a heretic by nature, so trust me, I know I was very cut off for a long time.
Okay.
It's like the people who just challenge everything. And challenging beliefs is great, but don't challenge them to a point where you unbelieve and you have no belief in anything, right?
Well, they believe in their own ego, in a sense. Their own ego is God, as somebody that that listened to said, ego is God.
Exactly. And they don't want to hear anything outside of them, and they can't tune in. And yeah, so when your crown is overactive, you will feel like you're very disconnected with your body. You will feel like, that feeling of being hungover where you're like super foggy brained and you almost feel like you're floating. It's like when your crown shut off, you will feel that way because you will. People who've endured a lot of trauma in their life, their souls are almost ejected from their body and they walk through life in that fog because there's much lower density energy in their body where their soul, because your soul is a high vibrational entity of you. It's like the highest vibration, your higher self. It can't be in your body when your body's full of gunk. So you'll feel like you're floating. If you're another good one to think of is if you're very clumsy, if you're forgetful, if you lose things, a lot of the time you're detached and you're ungrounded. if you have no clarity in your life, if you're confused, if you're always confused about everything, or you're having a hard time learning, crown, work on your crown.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I seem to have that periodically, but maybe that's another issue. I don't know.
If it's periodically, just ask for clarity. Every morning when I meditate, I ask my team for clarity and clear signs, because I'm like, our angels and our team gives us signs all the time. It's if we're open to seeing them, right?
Yeah, signs. But if only, I was thinking one time, if only God would just come down and just, or my angel would come down and just write me on a piece of paper, like what exactly do you want me to do? And a few paragraphs, I would appreciate that. But I guess
Also,
that,
if you start journaling every day and like channel it, you will start free writing and things will come out of you, and you'll look back in a week and you're like, oh, that's what I'm supposed to do. Sometimes it just takes a while for that clarity to come to you, right?
are you talking about automated writing?
Sort of. Like, I am I like to write, so I call it channeling, because a lot of it, I'll just get this inspiration and I'll pick up my phone and start writing in my notes, and I'll write poetry, and I'll write that, a lot of it turns into songs, or I'll just have these weird rushes of wisdom that come to me, and I'll look and I'm like, that is from source. That's not from within me. It's coming through me, kind of thing. And
Right.
they show you.
Okay. So what do you do for what kind of services do you offer for clients? Obviously coaching and was it energy healing?
Yes, so my energy healing, I'm a Reiki master, but I also am trained in pranic healing. I'm trained in auric cleansing, chakra balancing. I work with vibrational sound, so sound bowls and stuff too in my treatment. So it's not just Reiki. Not that just Reiki's there's anything wrong with it. I love
Right.
Reiki. But I'm the kind of person, I always need to create my own meld of things. So I brought all these different modalities together. And like I said, I do a lot of it online now because of the way the world is. And I love this because I can connect with people in different continents, on different hemispheres, right? I lead a Facebook group that I started back in June called the Spiritual Divinity Circle, and it's free. And
Mm-hmm.
it's for me to share, and everybody in there to share wisdom, things that they feel, or pose questions to the group. It's about healing, it's about community, it's about love and connection. And I just love it. It's like, it came from this little seed where it had like 30 people, and now we're almost 700 people. And it's really
Wow.
amazing. I love it. It's neat to see these things grow. It's all about momentum, right?
Yeah, I think that's an important thing. Momentum is huge, and I think, like we were talking about before in the beginning, if you start with something, start small, but then just keep going. I think that's the key, even with this podcast. So yeah, what you're doing with your group, like it will grow. It just start small and just keep going.
It is. It's like, you think of making a snowman. You're not starting with a giant snowball. You start with a little tiny snowball, and you roll it, and you shape it, and you roll it some more, for those
Right.
people.
And then all of the effort that you put forth is accumulated, and then it compounds. All your efforts will compound. That's the
Yeah.
optimistic prediction. Okay.
That's where you want to be, because that keeps you in alignment. If you start thinking of, oh, it's not going to work, it's going to do this, that's what you're going to bring into your reality, because it's all vibration. Our words are like spells. What we say to ourselves, our inner critic, our subconscious will, like, you think of all the times where you've thought of something low vibrational, you'd be like, I don't want that to happen, and then it happens. Like, that's where it's reprogramming these beliefs and being like, I can do this. I can do this. I'm going to do this. That's when you start to build momentum.
So in a way that what you think about often is going to influence what happens in your life.
Always. That's the law of attraction. Those are the laws of the universe, right? It's like a boomerang effect. What we put out there comes back to us.
Okay. I just want to comment on the dream catchers you have in the background, because there's a lot of them. So what's the significant?
I just It's so funny because I'd never had a dream catcher before, and I have one downstairs that I got off a lady off Facebook Marketplace. It just showed up in my feed, and I'm like, I need to buy that. And then this is a local lady too, and I've just this year I've really been big on supporting local home-based businesses because it's so important. Like I could have bought something like that off Amazon, but this lady who lives near me makes them. So she was like, what do you want in it? That one has the tree of life in the middle, which is a huge seed reality to a lot of things. The tree of life is very powerful, and just I love doilies. You know what's funny? I've always loved geometry, and it's
Mm-hmm.
sacred geometry also is so powerful. I don't know if you study sacred geometry or look into it, but shapes are so powerful. And I bought this before I really studied sacred geometry, and it's like divine because it's all these shapes and powerful lines and intersecting, everything. It's cool. I think it's beauty. It's beautiful.
I know Carl Jung used to draw these. It's kind of lotus kind of circles, like mandalas. Yeah, he would call them mandalas, and he used to like draw them, and they were just beautiful. And I think there's definitely a healing power in something like so beautiful like that.
There is, like, even I got this tattoo on my arm. It's probably hard to see. It's all like geometry and stuff. And
Okay, I see that.
down here is Archangel Michael's symbol down in the bottom. And it's cool because I've noticed, even I just got this one in October, and my daughter told me that on this side of my body where it is, my aura sticks out like way farther around, like around the geometric shapes. It's really cool. Like geometry shapes are so powerful. Two healing tools. I use sun rings, like Tesla sun rings in my healing, and there's neutralization rings too.
This
And
is
use
from Tesla. Tesla
well,
made.
it's the Tesla like shape when he used to pull energy out of the atmosphere
Okay.
before all the big energy companies charged us for it. This will bring energy in, and then I have a neutralization ring which has all these guys on the inside of the ring, and it pulls negative ions out of
Oh, you
space.
saying Tesla used something like this to get free energy?
Yeah, like if you look back and research the old, he used to have them sitting all along, pulling energy ions out of the atmosphere. That's the shape. That's the
Oh
energy.
man,
It's a
if somebody can invent that or reinvent that, if he really invented it, then he'll be a billionaire or trillionaire. Like there'll be free energy,
they
you
won't
know.
allow it. It's all
You think so?
no. That's why Tesla died, like with no money in his pocket. And now look at Elon Musk, coming up with reinventing all his things.
But I had read that Tesla didn't never cared about money, that he was a bit reckless with money. He was a genius otherwise, but with money he was but that's what I read. Um Anyway, I should read more about Tesla because he was actually born very close to well, in a neighboring country. I think he was born in Croatia, if I'm
Oh,
not
really?
mistaken. Yes. And then
Yeah.
he immigrated to, well, it wasn't Croatia then, it's Croatia now. But then he immigrated to US because I know he met Mark Twain and all that. That's just amazing.
He's got a book. My son's dad, I remember when I first was with Paul, he had the Tesla book and he read it. I actually need to get it too because I find it fascinating. But yeah, I think he was just a genius, a very ungrounded genius. Like he was grounded, but it's like I feel like he gave too much of his power to his inventions. And I've been reading a lot about these spiritual teachers who, like, they don't teach a lot, and then they're like they're reckless because they don't want money and they don't want these things. But how I feel about it is, if I become abundant, I can share more with those around me, and I can create more to help people around me, right?
Yeah. But some people, the cynics will say, you just want to, that's just your excuse to become abundant. So yeah.
You know what? I serve a lot, like in my group. I do card readings for free. I do videos for free. And like I've had so many coaches come to me who want me to like sell a big ticket item. And I'm like, that's not how I work. I don't want to sell big ticket items. I want to help the masses, and I want to I want to help people learn that they are capable of healing themselves. Like our truest gift is to heal ourselves. And through that, we will shift others and teach others how to heal themselves.
I also love the, I think it's, is it flowers? I can't really see well. And then there's, on the other side, there's a picture of flowers, and then there's a, yeah.
I painted that picture of the flowers in high school, and then I have an eye chart. I'm like
Mm.
pointing away, It's an old eye chart, and then
Yeah, to see if you can see ECBDLN. Am I right?
you're seeing from across the world. You have very good vision.
Very 2020 vision. Yes, I made it. Okay. Lastly, by the way, I wanted to comment, since you have the NASA shirt on, we might as well touch upon this, because a lot of my guests talk about UFOs. I myself don't really, because I'm not seeing anything in my life, so I don't really know. But what's your read on this?
Oh, there extraterrestrials exist. I've had some weird experiences in my life. I don't know how to put them into words. I know people who have been taken by UFOs to different.
Actually taken.
Yeah, I know some people who have been taken. It's their stories, but they're the kind of people that I'm not like, well, you're nuts. Don't, like, you're telling a story. They're people that I respect. So it's like, wow. Okay. But just this year, they like, what was it? The Pentagon released information that extraterrestrials exist. If we sit on this planet and we believe we are the most highly intelligent beings in this vast universe, I think that's ignorance, right? And that's just my take, because if you look back to the times of Thoth and, like, back in the old Egyptian times, and how they built the pyramids and how they had this higher wisdom back then within them. If you ever watch any shows on Gaia, that channel, there's some pretty cool wisdom, like even the times of Atlantis and Lemuria. Like,
Yeah.
there's seeds planted all over our earth. Like, how did they get there?
Right. Seems like some knowledge was lost. And then there was the great library, I think, in Constantinople, which is now Istanbul, that burned many centuries ago. And who knows what kind of books, because some of the books they couldn't replicate because they were the one of its kind, in that, it was a huge library. So some of the obscure books, that had maybe significant knowledge gone,
I think burned on purpose, that kind of stuff, right? To hide things.
I think it's also it's really hot, Turkey, and at that time probably the fire hazard wasn't it probably wasn't great, so okay, I wanted to ask lastly about, because we talked about the 7 chakras. What about, so can you touch upon just the other 2 chakras?
Okay, so there is the Earth Star chakra, which is about 18 inches below your feet.
Yeah.
That is where your karmic blueprint is stored, and like karmic trauma. And then there's the Soul Star chakra, which is about 18 inches above your head. And that's how you really connect to the celestial beings. And as you raise your vibration, you become more connected to these. And there's even more above that. Like I said, like, you have other chakras that connect into different layers of your aura and energy body. But yeah, those 2 are important to work on, because those really connect you. And as you become grounded, you'll become more connected with these chakras and be able to tap into divine wisdom.
And working on your chakras is going to also improve your health, the improving of the chi energy, and all the other chakras, the smaller ones, you said, the smaller centers around your body.
Yeah, and you'll become more sensitive to energies around you as well, where it's like, if something feels off, like, you'll feel it, or you'll feel like, I feel energy around me a lot. And it took me a long time to understand where I'll feel like buzzing or heaviness when other beings are near me, because I'm learning that I'm a channeler, right? So people will be next to me and I can feel it now, and I can actually understand what it is. And I'm really learning to tune into these energies. And it's neat because, like, I'll be like, is there somebody here? And my daughter will be like, yeah, there's somebody standing right beside you.
Is
I'm
there
like,
somebody? Oh. Is there somebody there now?
Not right now. I'm not feeling any buzzing through me right now.
Right.
But I know for a long time my dad would be with me. My dad passed away when I was 26. I never knew him, but he was always with me. And when I had a near-death experience in 2012, and I left my body, and he was there, and he told me to go back. He's like, it's not your time yet. You need to
Wait,
go back.
you actually died?
Yeah.
Like, clinically died?
Yes, I was in the hospital, and they told me I wasn't going to make it, because I used to try to kill myself. Like, I tried to kill myself many times when I was younger. I suffered severely from many things, and I overdosed so horribly on antidepressants and anti-anxiety pills because I was just like so done with life. And I was in the hospital out of my body because I just remember knowing everything that was going on, seeing myself down on the table. And then I remember coming back into my body and telling the nurse that I was going to have a seizure, and I'd never had a seizure in my life. And I woke up. I remember like being out my body and leaving and being so happy. And then my dad was like there, and I knew it was him, even though I didn't know him. I just knew it was him. And he's like, "It's not your time yet." And I'm like, "I don't want to go back."
Befitting that it was your dad who told you that.
It was never there in my life, right? And he was the one that made me go back, and he's been with me ever since.
He's trying to make up for lost time,
He is. I
maybe.
know.
All right. Well, it was lovely having you on. I'll put the link to your website and stuff like that. I'll put it under the
Thank
links
you.
under the video and the podcast, so if you're listening to this or watching. And thank you for being on, and thank you for watching or listening. Thank you.
Oh, anytime. Thank you for having me on. You have a great rest of your day.